I came back early from my guy's weekend to surprise my wife and overheard her on the phone. Marriage is a total prison, dude. If it weren't for his family's vineyard, I'd be out by now. We'd just returned from our anniversary trip. I left quietly and acted normal. 5 days later, she checked my phone history 27 times in one night. Because she knew I'd heard everything, I wasn't supposed to be home until Sunday night. That's why I parked 2 blocks down and walked in through the back gate, juggling a pint of blood orange gelato in one hand and a paper bag of fancy teas in the other. The breeze off the lake was warm, and the late afternoon sun was spilling through the trees. Everything felt perfect. Too perfect. My name's Jason Keller. I'm 34, live in upstate New York, and own a small but growing wine label that my family's been running for 3 generations. My wife, Vanessa, always says she misses me when I go away for even a weekend, so I thought I'd surprise her. Just show up early, bring her favorites, and maybe cook dinner together like we used to before things got complicated. I stepped inside the kitchen through the back door, trying to stay quiet. The house was still, the hum of the fridge the only sound downstairs. Her car was in the driveway, so I figured she was probably upstairs in her office. I moved quietly, careful not to let the screen door slam behind me. As I set the bags down on the counter, I heard her voice floating down the staircase. Loud, like she was on speakerphone. I froze. "No, I'm serious," she said, laughing. "Our marriage is basically a joke at this point. He's nice, but he's boring as hell. The only reason I'm still here is because of his family's vineyard. That place is going to be worth millions when the trust opens up." My hands were still wrapped around the paper bag. I felt it start to crumple, my knuckles whitening as I tried to breathe. The voice on the other end of the call was muffled. I couldn't make out the exact words, but Vanessa laughed again, louder this time. "I mean, Jason still thinks I'm this devoted, cozy little wife. He has no clue. It's kind of impressive, honestly. But I'm not staying in this forever. Once that vineyard transfers to him, I'm out. I've already started planning." I backed up slowly, every step like walking through wet cement. The bags on the counter looked ridiculous now. Pointless. Like props in a play I hadn't realized I was in. My chest felt tight, but not in a panicked way. Just hollow. Cold. Vanessa kept talking, but I didn't hear the rest. I was already walking out the same door I came in through, careful not to let it creak. She never heard me. She was too busy spinning our life into a lie upstairs. The gelato was still on the counter when I left. I didn't even grab my keys. I just walked to my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. Not at first. But I didn't turn on the music, and I didn't cry. I just kept my hands on the wheel and stared straight ahead until the familiar neon sign of the old lakeside motel flickered into view. And then I knew. I needed one night to think. Just one night to figure out what the hell to do when the person you've built your life with turns out to be playing a completely different game. I didn't sleep much that night at the lakeside motel. The room smelled faintly of mildew and burnt coffee, and the AC unit wheezed like it was on its last leg. I lay there on the stiff mattress, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling while the words Vanessa said played on loop in my head. Our marriage is basically a joke. The silence was worse than the betrayal. That long, cold silence between the moment I left the house and now, with nobody to talk to. No one to tell me what the hell I was supposed to do next. At around 2 a.m., I opened my phone and started drafting a text to my sister, Rachel. She was always the blunt one. She wouldn't sugarcoat anything. Maybe that's why I couldn't hit send. "Hey, something happened with Vanessa." I overheard her saying. "Deleted. Can I crash with you for a while?" Deleted. "You were right about her." Deleted. I must have rewritten that damn message 10 times before I finally gave up and locked the screen. There was something about saying it out loud, or even writing it, that made it too real. Like once I told someone, I'd never be able to go back. And stupid as it sounds, a part of me still wanted to pretend it was all some misunderstanding. That maybe I heard it wrong. That maybe she didn't mean it. By sunrise, I had made up my mind. I went home. The air in the cottage felt different that morning, like it knew what had happened. Vanessa was at the kitchen counter, still in her robe, hair twisted up in a loose bun. She turned around with a big smile the second she saw me. "There you are. You're back early." I kissed her on the cheek. Same as always. No hesitation. No sign I'd been gone all night. I even smiled. "Missed you," I said. And just like that, I stepped back into the life of a man who hadn't heard his wife call their marriage a calculated investment. She didn't ask why I didn't text her or where I'd been. Maybe she figured I just got in late and crashed somewhere with one of the guys. Maybe she didn't care. Either way, I played my part. The next few days were a quiet performance. I went back to work, kissed her goodbye in the mornings, helped her prep dinner when I got home. I even made her laugh, once while we were watching some mindless show on Netflix. But I watched her differently now. I saw how she guarded her phone when she got texts. I noticed how she suddenly had calls to return every night after dinner. I saw the way she smiled when she was alone in her office, the soft kind of smile you don't make at spreadsheets. She still touched me like nothing had changed. And I let her. Because I needed time. I needed to figure out who I'd married. And what I was going to do about it. A week passed before I opened our shared banking app. It was a normal evening. Vanessa was upstairs in her office, probably responding to emails, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a half-drunk glass of Merlot next to me. I stared at the screen for a long time before finally clicking the login button. We'd always had separate accounts for the most part, but about a year into our marriage, we opened a shared account for household expenses. That was the story, anyway, and at first glance, everything looked fine. The usual: groceries, utilities, Amazon orders that were probably throw pillows. But then I noticed something. Small transfers. Every couple of days, like clockwork. $200 here, $150 there, $300 once. All labeled the same way. To Vanessa, reimburse. Reimburse what? I dug deeper. She'd been moving money from our shared account into a personal checking account I didn't even know she had. An account that wasn't listed on any of our joint financial records. I opened a spreadsheet. Transaction dates, amounts, destinations. I went back 3 months, then 6. She'd moved just over $8,000 in total. Never enough to raise red flags, but steady. Like she was slowly siphoning off her share before something big. I started saving screenshots, statements, email confirmations. I even recorded a few voice memos of my own thoughts, dated and time-stamped, just in case. That night, I asked her about refinancing the second-floor renovation we'd been putting off. I just wanted to see how she'd respond. "Oh," she said, barely looking up from her phone. "I'm not sure we should make any big financial moves right now. Things feel up in the air." Up in the air? She caught herself and smiled quickly. "I mean with the vineyard and all. Your dad's been making all those changes to the board. Nice save." The next morning, I called Charlie Briggs, an old friend from college who had done a couple of freelance gigs as a private investigator before he got hired full-time with an insurance firm. "You doing side work?" I asked. He didn't ask why. "You name it, I can dig it up." I gave him Vanessa's full name, her old address, the number on her and used gym membership, everything I had. "I don't want to know who she's sleeping with," I said. "I want to know what she's doing with money." "Got it," he said. "Give me a week." In the meantime, I kept playing the part. She kissed me goodbye in the mornings, and I smiled back. She asked if I could pick up her dry cleaning, and I said sure. I even brought home her favorite wine one night, just to keep the illusion alive. But I was watching her closer now. The way she'd pause when I walked into the room too suddenly. How she minimized her laptop screen the second she heard footsteps. Vanessa thought she was being careful. She didn't know I'd already started laying the groundwork. And I was going to find out exactly what kind of exit strategy she'd been building before she had the chance to use it. A few weeks later, Vanessa brought up the idea over coffee, like it was nothing. "We should go somewhere for our anniversary," she said, stirring oat milk into her latte. "Something big. Like Prague." I looked up from my phone. "Prague." She smiled like she'd just suggested a walk in the park. "Yeah, we've never done Europe together, and Prague's so romantic, you know?" I nodded slowly. "You once said Prague was, quote, a tourist trap with better lighting." She laughed lightly. "Did I? God, I was such a snob back then." Back then. Like it was decades ago and not 3 months earlier, when we were arguing about our travel budget, and she said she'd rather spend a weekend hiking alone than be elbow to elbow with backpackers on cobblestones. I played along. "Sure, let's talk about it." A few nights later, I floated another option. "Actually, what if we went to the vineyard instead?" I said casually, watching her from across the dinner table. "My parents keep asking when we'll come stay for a few days. Could be good timing." Her fork paused midair, just for a second. Then she smiled again. "That could be nice too." Too smooth. That weekend, I called my parents and said we'd be coming up. Told them I wanted to walk the property with Dad, go over some future expansion plans. Vanessa chimed in on speaker, saying she couldn't wait to see them. She even suggested bringing a bottle of Amarone as a gift. When we arrived, Vanessa was in full performance mode. She complimented my mom's lasagna like it was a Michelin meal, laughed at Dad's old jokes like they were brand new. She even helped my mom trim the rose bushes, which she normally swore gave her itchy hands. But it was what she didn't say that stood out. At breakfast on the second day, I walked in to find her sitting with my father at the kitchen island, smiling sweetly and asking questions like a curious daughter-in-law. "So how does the trust actually work?" Again, she asked. Dad chuckled. "Same as always. Jason gets everything when he turns 40. The estate, the bottling rights, all of it. And the trustees?" she asked, sipping her coffee. "They're just family, right?" I lingered just outside the doorway, listening. "Mostly," Dad said. "Jason's in the process of consolidating it so there's fewer outside hands in the pot." Vanessa nodded slowly, then changed the subject. Later that evening, we sat out on the back porch with glasses of Syrah. the lake shimmering under the moonlight. She leaned her head on my shoulder, like everything was perfect. But earlier that day, I'd left my phone on record in the sunroom, just tucked into a decorative bowl beside the sofa, where she'd taken a long phone call after brunch. I listened to it later that night, alone in the guest room. I asked him, she said into the phone. I brought it up casually. He doesn't know anything yet. There was a pause. No, he's still clueless. His dad said the trust rolls over in 6 years. That means we stay until then. She sighed, voice softer now. Yeah, I know. But it's not forever. I can handle a few more years. The next morning, she kissed my dad on the cheek, told my mom she loved her French toast, and held my hand all the way back to the car. She thought she was collecting pieces for her long game. But all she was doing was giving me more proof. The house of cards she built? It was starting to wobble, and I wasn't planning to catch it when it fell. It happened on the last night of our vineyard trip. Vanessa had gone upstairs to shower. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, pretending to scroll through emails, but I wasn't thinking about work. I was thinking about the conversation she'd had in the sunroom. About the way she smiled at my parents, butter wouldn't melt style, while quietly laying the groundwork to rob them blind. I stood up and walked over to her suitcase. She always packed too much, and she always left it unzipped. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Receipts, maybe. A note. Something. But tucked in the inside mesh pocket, behind her folded jeans and toiletries, was a phone I didn't recognize. Matte black. No case. Clean. Too clean. I turned it over in my hand. No lock screen. No fingerprint. It opened instantly. There were only a few apps installed. Basic stuff. But the texts were what stopped me cold. The contact name was just the letter J. I scrolled up. J, 2 more years. Then we're out. Just hang on. Vanessa, once the vineyard sign's over, we're free. I'll finally have the capital to invest in us. J, make sure he doesn't catch on. Play the part. Vanessa, he doesn't suspect anything. He still brings me wine at night like we're in love. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, the phone still glowing in my hand. I'd suspected. I'd pieced things together. But this was confirmation. Not just deceit. Not just manipulation. This was a plan. A coordinated, calculated strategy. A second life she'd been living behind my back. They had a nickname for it. The 2-year plan. I took a few photos of the screen, careful to include the dates and timestamps. Then I opened my secure cloud folder, the one Charlie, my investigator friend, had access to, and uploaded every image. Just in case. I placed the phone exactly where I'd found it. Zipped the pocket halfway closed, like it had been. Then I sat there in the dark, listening to the sound of the shower running above me. When Vanessa came out, wrapped in a towel, her hair twisted up, she smiled like nothing in the world had changed. Hey, can you grab my moisturizer from my bag? She asked. I stood up, already halfway to the suitcase. Of course, I said. I handed it to her without blinking. That night, I lay awake while she fell asleep next to me, breathing evenly, her hand resting lightly on my chest like she still owned my heart. But I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt numb. Like I'd finally stopped hoping she might still be the person I married. Like I was staring at a mask that had started to slip. And now that I'd seen the face behind it, I knew exactly who she was, and exactly what I was going to do next. After we got back from the vineyard, I stopped trying to catch her. She was already caught. Now, it was about control. I started small. I got quiet, distracted. I told her work was getting intense, which wasn't a lie, but I used it as cover. I'd take long walks in the vineyard after dinner, come back late from the winery, leave my laptop open on the kitchen table with vague spreadsheets and confusing legal documents. I started making up calls with the estate lawyer and muttering things like contingency planning and succession reevaluation, just loud enough for her to overhear. The first time I did it, she casually asked, "Everything okay with your dad?" "Yeah," I said, flipping a page in the ledger. "He's just reconsidering the structure of the vineyard transfer. Might be shifting the trust language a bit." She blinked. "Shifting how?" "Nothing major." "Probably." I shrugged and went back to reading. From then on, I could feel the shift. She started watching me the way I had been watching her. I'd leave my phone out on the counter, screen unlocked. She'd glance at it, pretending not to. Once, I came back from a shower and saw my laptop screen dimmed, like it had just gone idle. She began asking weirdly supportive questions. "How's your dad's health been lately? Do you ever worry about the board making changes without you?" I gave her nothing. Then I went further. I left an email open one night on my office computer. Subject line, "Trust Amendment Draft, Jason only." The body was empty. Just a draft. But I left it there, subtle, just enough to raise doubt. A few nights later, I got a text from Vanessa that was clearly meant for someone else. "Vanessa, he hasn't mentioned the new clause yet. Do you think he suspects anything?" Seconds later. "Vanessa, oops. Sorry, that was meant for Carrie, LOL, ignore me." I stared at it, my heart cold and steady. She wanted me to ask. She wanted me to chase it. But I didn't bite. Instead, I responded, "Me. No worries. Hope you two are having fun." She didn't reply. Later that night, I found her pacing in her office, pretending to organize receipts. "Everything okay?" I asked. She gave me a too bright smile. "Yeah, just catching up on boring financial stuff. Need help?" No. All good." I walked away, knowing I just turned her paranoia back onto herself. I kept dropping little hints. Left a new business card from an estate lawyer on the hall table. Made a quick stop at the bank and came home with a different folder each time. Left one labeled, "Revocable Trust, Draft in Progress," on the passenger seat of my car, peeking just enough from under the visor. She noticed. She never said anything, but her face started changing, tight around the eyes. Smile a little too slow. She was unraveling. And for once, I wasn't the one trying to keep the truth hidden. She was. Only now, she didn't know what I knew, or what came next. But I did, and I was just getting started. A couple weeks later, Vanessa suggested we host a dinner. She floated the idea while flipping through a lifestyle magazine in bed, acting like it was spur of the moment. "What if we had your parents over this weekend? We could do something nice, celebrate the anniversary we didn't really get to honor." I looked up from my book. "Actually, I was thinking of inviting some other folks. You know, something fresh." She raised an eyebrow. "Like who?" "Your cousin Laura. And maybe Carrie." I smiled lightly. "You two haven't had a proper catch-up in a while." Her fingers paused on the page. Just for a second. Then she gave a tight smile. "Yeah, sure. That sounds nice." She didn't like it. I could tell. But she agreed, because saying no would have drawn attention, and Vanessa didn't like attention she couldn't control. We did it on a Friday. I grilled salmon, set the table out on the deck overlooking the lake. Vanessa wore a soft green dress and made her sangria with citrus and mint, her signature. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Laura arrived first, bubbly and chatty as ever. Carrie came soon after, bringing her usual dry wit and a bottle of Chardonnay that nobody asked for but everyone pretended to like. Vanessa played the good hostess, laughing, complimenting Carrie's earrings, passing hors d'oeuvres with grace like she wasn't slowly coming apart inside. Dinner started out harmless enough. Talk of books, vacation plans, weird things seen on Instagram. I waited until we were 3 glasses in, the candles flickering low, and the night feeling comfortable, intimate. Then I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "You know what's funny?" Everyone looked up. "I overheard something strange in this house a few weeks ago," I said casually. Walked in through the back door early, caught someone mid-phone call upstairs. Vanessa's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "What do you mean?" I shrugged. Someone was on speaker. Didn't realize anyone was home yet. Carrie glanced at Laura. "What did they say?" "Oh, I can't remember all of it," I said, swirling my glass. "Something about, oh, right, that their marriage was a joke, that their husband was a bore, and that they were only sticking around for the inheritance." Silence. Carrie's eyes widened. Laura blinked. Vanessa laughed, too loud, too fast. "Okay, wow. What is this, a murder mystery game?" I smiled at her. "You tell me." She set her glass down with a quiet clink. "Jason, what the hell are you talking about?" I leaned in slightly. "They also said, and I'm paraphrasing, once the vineyard sign's over, we're free. I'll finally have the capital to invest in US." The silence that followed was thick and immediate. Even the crickets seemed to quiet outside. Vanessa's face drained of color. "Are you seriously accusing me of something in front of guests?" "I'm not accusing anyone," I said calmly. "I'm just repeating what I heard. Verbatim." Laura looked down at her plate. Carrie didn't move. Vanessa stood up, her chair scraping back across the deck. "This is insane." "You said it, not me," I said. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she looked like someone who didn't know what to say. Carrie cleared her throat. Maybe we should call it a night." Vanessa didn't wait. She stormed back into the house, barefoot, dress fluttering behind her. I stayed seated, sipping the last of my wine. Laura gave me a long look. "Did you really hear that?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I did." Carrie nodded, slowly. "Huh." The dinner party ended with no dessert and no goodbyes. But it gave me exactly what I needed. The crack in Vanessa's mask. And the first glimpse of how quickly she'd fall apart when the performance was over. The morning after the dinner, Vanessa was gone. No note. No text. Just a missing car and a half-full bottle of sangria still on the counter. I didn't chase her. I knew exactly where she'd gone, probably to Carrie's or maybe that lakeside cafe she liked to sit at when she needed to clear her head. She was buying time. Scrambling. I gave her the space. Instead, I made calls. By noon, I was in the office of my attorney, Dave Morgan, a fourth-generation estate lawyer who'd handled everything for my family since my grandfather's time. His office smelled like old books and fresh coffee, comforting in the way that only brutal paperwork can be. I handed over a folder thick with printed emails, screenshots, transaction logs, and voice recordings. I had indexed every transfer she'd made, every conversation she had slipped up in, and the entire transcript from the phone Vanessa thought I hadn't heard. Dave flipped through it quietly, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and tapped the edge of the folder. You want this to go away quietly, or you want to make sure she can never touch your family's money again? I didn't hesitate. I want her out. Fully. No ties. No handouts. No loopholes. He nodded. Then we'll need the trust amended. It won't be hard. Her name's not on anything officially. We'll just need your father's signature and a formal removal as a contingent beneficiary. And the accounts? We'll freeze all the joint ones today. Separate your assets. Reallocate anything she's had access to. I'd also suggest filing for divorce under marital misrepresentation. I raised an eyebrow. That a real thing? In this case, he gave a tight smile. Absolutely. By the next morning, Vanessa was served at our front door. She had just come back, dressed in yoga pants and sunglasses like nothing had happened. I watched from inside as the courier handed her the envelope. She didn't open it right away, just stared at it like it might bite. Then she looked up and saw me through the window. She didn't wave. She just walked around to the side of the house and sat down on the patio steps like her legs had gone out from under her. 2 hours later, I was packed and gone. I moved into my grandfather's old coastal house, a quiet, weathered place about an hour away, tucked between cliffs and evergreens. No neighbors. No pitying glances. Just clean air and space to think. I changed my passwords. Froze all credit cards with her name on them. Sent the investigator my final report, with instructions to hold it on file in case she made any public claims. By Friday, her name was officially removed from every vineyard document, the trust, and any legal asset that bore the Keller name. Vanessa sent one text. Vanessa, I don't understand what you're doing. We can still fix this. I didn't reply. I'd given her every chance to be honest. Every moment to come clean. But she didn't want a partner. She wanted access. And now she had nothing. Because when the mask finally came off, I didn't just walk away. I shut the whole game down. Vanessa didn't disappear. Of course not. She resurfaced online within a week, all smiles and soft filters, posting a photo of herself holding a wine glass on the cottage deck alone. The caption read, "Sometimes people grow apart. Grateful for the memories." That was her opening move. Next came the whispers, friends texting me screenshots of her Instagram stories. She spun it fast. Jason and I decided to separate amicably. We're taking time to focus on ourselves. It's been a tough year, and we just realized we wanted different things. Not a single mention of trust funds. Not a word about inheritance. She was rewriting the story before anyone could ask questions. And I let her. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't clap back online. I didn't send a single text to the people who forwarded me her passive-aggressive captions. Because I knew something she didn't. The truth didn't need to shout. It just needed to be ready. Behind the scenes, I documented everything. I archived her posts, kept a folder of anything that even remotely implied financial manipulation or public misrepresentation. I even got help from an old college friend who still ran IT for one of the Vineyard's media consultants. He sent me logs from our brand inbox. Vanessa had been emailing people in PR, offering behind-the-scenes access to the family business if things ever went public. That folder joined the others. Then one of our mutual friends, Anna, messaged me out of the blue. Anna, heads up. She's telling people you were emotionally distant. That you checked out months ago. She says she wanted to leave, but didn't know how. Me. Appreciate you telling me. Keep the screenshots coming. They did. By the end of the month, I had everything I needed to shut down any future attempt at a smear campaign. But I still didn't use it. I didn't need to. Vanessa's mask was slipping all on its own. She tried to re-enter the social scene. Wine tastings, charity events, small influencer dinners in the city. But without my name or the Keller family vineyard behind her, people stopped listening. She was just another pretty face with half a story. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. I updated my will and revised all estate documents to ensure that Vanessa, or any future partner, couldn't make a claim without airtight prenups and board approval. I deleted our wedding photos from the cloud, took her off every login, every card. And then, I did something that surprised even me. I started mentoring. A small local high school had a summer entrepreneurship program, and one of the counselors was a longtime customer at the vineyard. She asked if I'd consider speaking to the students. I said yes. So every Tuesday, I sat in a folding chair next to a dry erase board and talked to 15-year-olds about branding, balance sheets, and why you should never mix love with unclear financial boundaries. I wasn't Jason, the husband. I was Jason, the man rebuilding his own name. Not to prove anything, just to remember who I was before someone tried to turn my life into a transaction. It came in an envelope. No return address. Just my name, Jason, written in her handwriting. the same loopy cursive she used to write grocery lists and love notes in the early days. I found it tucked into the mailbox at the vineyard one cool morning in October. The leaves had started to turn, casting orange and red shadows across the gravel drive. For a second, I considered tossing it straight into the fire pit without opening it. But curiosity is a hell of a thing. I read it once, standing there next to the porch rail, the smell of damp wood and early frost in the air. It was exactly what I expected, part apology, part performance. Jason, I know you probably won't read this, and if you do, you'll roll your eyes and think I'm lying all over again. But I needed to say it anyway. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I swear I didn't. I never set out to hurt you. It just got out of control. At first, it was about security. Stability. I'd spent so many years scraping by, depending on no one. When you came into my life, it was like breathing again. You made everything so easy, so safe. But somewhere along the way, I convinced myself I was owed something. I resented how much you had, and I hated that I couldn't stop thinking about the future as numbers on a spreadsheet. I stopped being your wife and started being a strategist. But I loved you. I know you won't believe that. I know it doesn't matter now, but I did. Maybe not in the way you needed me to, but in the only way I knew how. I'm sorry. It wasn't signed love. Just Vanessa. I stood there a long time after reading it. Then I walked down the hill, past the vineyard rows where the leaves were curling inward and the grapes had already been picked. I stepped into the fire pit ring, crouched down, and struck a match. The letter burned fast, pale paper curling in on itself, Vanessa's words turning to soft ash in the wind. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel vindication. Just a quiet sort of peace. She got her final word. But the ending was mine. I turned back toward the vines, grabbed the pruning shears from the shed, and walked toward the far row, where new growth had started pushing through the soil. The sun was rising behind me, warm on my back. It was a good day to start cutting away the dead things and let something better grow.